Titans, go!
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Titan Talk, the Titans podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Charles Skaggs, back in Doom Manor, ready to talk some more Doom Patrol because Doom Patrol. And fortunately, I'm joined once again by my wonderful co-host, wonderful friend, and fellow avid Doctor Who toy collector, DJ Nick. How you doing, Nick?
Hey, Charles, I'm doing wonderful, and I have to definitely congratulate you on your latest acquisition when it comes to these wonderful toys. You definitely are a man that has such wonderful toys, and I don't know where you get them, but that latest set you got is brilliant, brilliant, brilliant stuff.
Well, thank you, Jack Nicholson.
You're welcome, sir.
Where does he get those wonderful toys? Yes. There's a quotable line. It's a good thing Zan's not here, because otherwise we would spend the next half hour quoting Batman 1989 as a result. So, yes, but we are not going to quote Batman 1989. We are actually going to talk, believe it or not, we are talking here at episode 57, Doom Patrol. The 7th episode of Doom Patrol Season 2 came out on July 23rd, 2020. Written by Tamara Becker-Wilkinson, who wrote some previous episodes, Pain Patrol, Ezekiel Patrol, the Season 1 finale, and Flex Patrol. And also Eric Deedle, who wrote the previous episodes, Sex Patrol, which was such a fun episode to talk about, and also Hair Patrol, which introduced the Beard Hunter, who makes a return, oddly enough, in this very episode, much to, I'm sure, some people's chagrin. And this episode was directed by Jessica Lowry, who is new to Doom Patrol, hasn't directed before, but does a pretty decent job here. There's a lot going on in this one. We have a lot to talk about. Once again, we have 4 topics full of stuff to talk about. So, Nick, before we get started and I start talking a little bit more about the guest cast in this one, did you enjoy this one? Did you enjoy this episode? Do you have any quick thoughts about it?
I really, really enjoyed this one, Charles, especially, I think, halfway through, which we will get to, where they just upped the ante, and I was like, wow, this is seriously happening. And it was, once again, what I love about it is so balanced, as in you laugh, you're shocked, there's tension, and a big dose of silliness, especially in this episode. Granted, we have been used to some silliness in the show, and I think it's
just some. I think we've quite a bit, probably, but
yeah. But I thought I actually took it for what it was. I thought it was hilarious. Especially where certain scenes really, really made me chuckle, and I was like, "Oh, really?" Kind of shaking my head, going, really Doom Patrol, really.
Well, obviously, we're going to talk a lot about poor Cliff's saga as he tries to get back to Doom Manor and has
one love,
one hapless adventure after another. So, but he gets some shout outs to people in the process. So guest cast in this one, we get the return of Bethany Ann Lind as Clara Steele, who turns up at the very end of the episode. We of course get Mark Sheppard back as Willoughby Kipling. And that's always fun because it's Mark Sheppard. If you've ever seen him on anything like Doctor Who or Supernatural or one of umpteen things, including, an early episode of The X-Files, as I recall. So,
yes, you are correct, sir.
Yeah,
the X-Files seem to be circling a lot lately.
Yeah, it's funny how that happens. Funny how I've got X-Files in the brain. We'll talk more about that a little bit. But we also get the return of Tommy Snider as the Beard Hunter, which I talked about. And Jhemma Ziegler is introduced as the Scant Queen. Now, she's done some episodes of Bones and NCIS New Orleans, but I'm not really familiar with her or anything else that she does, but that kind of stood out on her resume, her CV. And we get a quick cameo appearance once again by Grayson Chadwick as Addie Farr, Rita Farr's occasionally horrible mother, once again, but this time in a nightmare sequence. So, yeah. But some trivia this time. So, a couple things that I thought I'd bring up. First, when Cliff returns to Earth, he crashes through a billboard. And if you took a really good look at that billboard, like if you were able to pause it and take a really good look at it, it's a billboard advertising My Side, a fictional autobiography written by Denise, the dinosaur half of Animal Vegetable Mineral Man. So we get a little update on that character. And, you know, there's like a few pull quotes attributed on the billboard to the book. One of the people quoted on the billboard is Kite Man. So it's, you know, a villain that's been quite popular lately on the Harley Quinn animated series, and also during Tom King's run on Batman, if you're at all familiar with that. I'm familiar with both. And during Tom King's run on Batman, he developed a catchphrase by the name of, which is expressed so simply as "Hell yeah," as in Kite Man, hell yeah. So, and that's essentially what the pull quote is for here for Kite Man, who gets attributed essentially his catchphrase. Other pull quotes that are pretty notable to Doom Patrol fans. One is graphic and gripping from the former Doom Patrol writer Gerard Way. You know, also, hey, co-creator of the Umbrella Academy and lead singer of My Chemical Romance, if you're at all familiar with him. And this book changed my life, from Way's co-writer on Doom Patrol, Jeremy Lambert. So nice little nod there. And very fitting to have Gerard Way getting a shout-out, because one of his creations makes their debut on this very episode in form of the Scants. So now you Nick, I know we're going to talk more about the Scants here in a minute, but do you have a quick reaction to those characters before I get into a little bit of background on them?
Well, you know, I'm actually very curious as to their background, Charles, because this was the very first time I ever saw the Scants or heard of them.
Right.
But, you know, they fit perfectly within the Doom Patrol universe. Seeing the you know, crazy and curious and oddball things we've seen on this show.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen the sex men. We've seen, you know, portals opening up through the rear ends of
Dr.
donkeys.
Time, yeah. You know,
we've seen it all
Red
so
Jack,
far.
yeah. You know, the D-Creator, if you remember that giant big eyeball in the sky. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we have seen our fair share of oddities, so they were fun. I think it was a bit. Yeah, I can understand maybe why they didn't, you know, stick around for too long, and I will get to that later.
Right.
But they were a fun addition to this episode, I suppose, as the, should we say, creature of the week, as it were.
Yeah.
Because it didn't really sort of. I mean, it forwarded things to a certain degree. But I think it was more of like the creature feature, as it were, you know, because, you know, every time you hear the doorbell ring, you know something's going to happen when it comes to Doom Patrol. It's always like,
why don't they ever like look through the little peephole on the door first before opening it? Because every time they open it, it's never a good thing, right?
It kind of reminded me.
They just opened up the door, like, okay, now what? But
it kind of reminded me, not to go too much on the tangent, but just of Courage the Cowardly Dog, which was a TV show that I absolutely loved.
Right.
And in that case, too, you know, every time that Courage would kind of look outside the door, there was always some weird creature out there. And I definitely miss that show very much. Now I'm kind of getting tears of nostalgia thinking about Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Nick, you old softy, you. So a little background on the Scants. They've only appeared once. So they first appeared in their very recent creation. So they first appeared in 2017's Doom Patrol Volume 6, number 7, created by Gerard Way and Mike Allred, who's familiar to a lot of fans from Madman and iZombie. So he was a co-creator on iZombie and did a great run of Silver Surfer with Dan Slott not too long ago that I appreciated because it was very Doctor Who-like in a lot of ways. So as a Whovian, I was a sucker for that. But as far as the Scants, in this particular issue, the Chief is making a play to lead the Doom Patrol again after quite some time. And he loads everybody into his extra-dimensional transport and heads into the Scantoverse. And there, the Doom Patrol watches the Scants in action, eventually making it to the Idiot Processing Facility. And also there, though, are a group known as Dan Scram and the Gravity Pirates, who have apparently a major beef with the Chief. And those two groups battle, but the Doom Patrol ends up kind of being outclassed by the Gravity Pirates. And Dan Scram eats some Idiot, which essentially makes him evolve super fast in what humanity will eventually become in the far future. A giant floating sperm with 5 eyes, apparently. So, as Nick is struggling to contain his laughter on this one.
My best.
You're doing a good job. So the Doom Patrol, of course, overcomes Dan Scram and his crew, but the team decides maybe the Chief isn't exactly the best person to lead the team at this particular moment in time. Especially once they find out that he's gambling again. So that's it. That's basically their appearance. And so here they're adapted for television for the very first time, and to rather amusing effect, as we'll talk about here in a minute, as the Doom Patrol struggles to contain their rather horribly bad ideas. So that the Scants tend to infect people with. So, all right. So 4 topics. Big one right off the bat first, because this is a lot of characters kind of intertwined, as I was talking with Nick about. So first topic, let's talk about Larry, Vic, Ronnie, Miranda, the Beard Hunter, and the Scants. So essentially we have the Doom Patrol getting a crate from the Eisman Museum that shows up on their front door and marked with big block letters, underlined and bolded and whatnot, do not open. So, of course, they open it. And wackiness ensues. And essentially infecting the team with Scants and causing the team to suffer some rather bad ideas throughout this episode to often humorous effect. And as a result, they end up deciding to go back into the painting that we saw at the end of, toward the end of season 1, with all that white space, and there they encounter the Beard Hunter and get a little update on him and some questions about where Mr. Nobody has run off to. So a lot going on there. I know it's probably a hard one to approach, Nick. So whatever first thoughts you have, and we'll kind of take the discussion from there, I think.
Well, I like the fact that, we finally got to readdress the painting because, as you and I have talked about previously, is where is the painting? What's the deal now with the Beard Hunter and Mr. Nobody? Where are these guys? And we find out that Mr. Nobody has kind of flown the coop, apparently, from what we can gather. I have to say,
got himself a nice deal doing vocal work on an animated series.
I wonder
which one. Yeah.
it makes you wonder indeed. I love that little sort of a hint there. But this time, while the Beard Hunter made me kind of gag last time I saw him, because, let's be honest, I was having my dinner and this guy's eating beard. It's like, no. Lost my appetite. There it goes down the drain, but oh well. But I thought it was hilarious, the fact that he has actually painted himself white to kind of blend in. And he's like, they're not going to find me like this, because I'm like a shinobi warrior and all this kind of thing. I thought
he painted like the one side. He didn't paint his entire body.
Exactly, his whole
just the front.
I guess it might
just
have
the
been hard
front
for him
side.
to do the back, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you ask the Scant, could you do my back, please? But no, it was actually great to catch up with him. And now we're kind of wondering even more. So the big question is, where is Mr. Nobody and what is he up to? Other than that, I thought it was interesting that we've got Roni to kind of visit the Doom Manor for the first time. And I suppose it is kind of because we've been to Doom Manor already, so we know what to expect. I think we're kind of laughing along seeing this newbie coming into Doom Manor, not knowing what she's expecting. I mean, we gather that Vic has told her something, but it seems like he's toned it down a little bit just to not freak her out too much.
Well, can you blame him? I don't blame him.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Because he's trying to impress this girl, and Roni is approaching this completely cold. And that's kind of, like you said, it's kind of what makes this episode even a little bit more fun, because this is her first major exposure to Doom Patrol weirdness. And she gets thrown in at the deep end on this one in a big way. And, it just makes for some very comical scenes in a lot of places, especially when Vic is about to operate on her because, hey, he's wearing a lab coat. Why not, right?
Of course. I mean, he has the most advanced AI in the world. Of course he can operate naturally.
Yeah, sure.
Surgery is, you don't need, degree and years of experience to perform surgery. No, you just need a supercomputer and you're good to go.
Yep. You probably just download it, like the Matrix, right? Yeah.
Exactly. You are now a certified surgeon.
I know Kung Fu. Oh, and open heart surgery.
Exactly. Nice. I like that.
You see what I did there?
Yep. I did. But what I thought also, in all this craziness, of course, we find out later that everybody's kind of been taken over by the Scants, as it were.
Infected, yeah.
And they've been infected. And the fact that seeing Larry and Miranda going to the hospital, because obviously, once again, talking about a bad idea. I mean, I know I might sound like I'm a little bit all over the place here, Charles, but it's very intricate.
There's a lot of interwoven characters in this one, so yeah, we're going to probably be we're going to be back and forth a lot on this one, I think. Mm. So no worries. I
mean, because we know obviously he's super depressed, obviously, because he wants to go and see how Dex is doing, because he feels he is to blame for what's been going on and so on. He wants to check in on Dex, but he couldn't but laugh. It was just hilarious. I mean, how in the world do you think they're not going to recognize that when you're wearing a mask that makes you look like the Invisible Man, and you just have a lab coat on, saying I'm Dr. Train? It's like,
exactly.
Dude, seriously.
Well, the funny part is they're waltzing in there, essentially behaving like they're stoned. And, that poor judgment you would probably expect from someone who was high. And they waltz in there, especially with Larry, like you said, he's wrapped in those bandages, looking more like a patient than a doctor. And, but hey, he's wearing a lab coat, so I guess, yeah, I could pull this off. And he's so confident about it. He's so casual. And he just
this is patient stat.
Exactly. That's what you say, right? Stat. Yeah. And Flid is helping him, but Flid appears to be affected as well. And it makes for like a very amusing sequence that becomes a little bit sad and a little bit tragic because as we find out, Dex is no longer there. Dex has been moved. Dex left the hospital, so Larry is kind of left, ponder that for a while in his room. So not sure how to proceed, probably.
I actually had a question for you, and I actually wanted your theory on this, Charles.
Right.
The fact that when our characters are infected,
yes,
Miranda does not seem like she's infected, but when she switches, the other personality, Flick in this sense, seems to be infected. Do you have any idea for that? Because I was wondering whether it was kind of like gas seeping into the underground, and so the personalities who were in the underground got infected, but Miranda didn't. It seemed a little bit odd to me. But
like, why would Miranda be affected and Flit? Or excuse me, I had it backwards. Why would Miranda not be affected and Flit is affected? Is what? I was trying to think about that, and then the only thing I could think of is that maybe because Miranda threw herself in the well.
So she's kind of a different version.
Or just because of her particular superpower that she has.
Okay. So she's immune to it, maybe.
Well, because with Crazy Jane, each persona has its own superpower.
Certainly, yeah.
So the question is, what is Miranda's superpower? And maybe whatever ability she happens to have immunizes her against the Scants somehow.
That could very well be.
I mean, unfortunately, like you said, we didn't get an explanation, so that's probably the best one I could offer, I guess.
Yeah, because that was the only thing I was sort of wondering outside of them, but it was just great, and we got to see a little bit more of Miranda, and it seems like she is.
And she was also
nice.
Yeah, and she was also introducing herself to the Doom Patrol.
She seems like a genuinely nice person. I mean, at least here, she seems like she's genuinely nice.
At least here. So we'll have to wait and see. But she definitely tries to make an effort to get along with everybody. She's making everybody pancakes and trying to ingratiate herself to everyone. Certainly a very distinct change of pace from Jane, because Jane is much more abrasive, confrontational. So a lot of the Doom Patrol meeting Miranda for the first time are kind of taking it back, understandably at first, and then come to realize, well, hey, maybe this persona will work out because she's making us pancakes, right? That's not horrible at all, right?
Exactly, and she's not antagonizing us. She's not, insulting us, because she seems like almost like a flower child, if you will. Kind of like very much like I got that very much kind of hippie vibe from her. I mean,
I think that's a great observation.
Very chilled out, very, it's cool, man, relax, and all this kind of thing. She had that very sort of chilled out demeanor about her, which I thought was nice. And so that's the flower child personality as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I think that's a great observation, especially knowing what you know from the season 2 finale that we just watched. So because we're not going to spoil that, relax. We're not going to go there.
As much as we want to, we won't.
But just saying that, in context with that finale, I think Nick is onto something here with that. So I'm going to give you points, sir, because you're on the. I think you're onto something. All right. So
what about you, Charles? What did you make of these characters?
Well, the Scants. I had read. I wasn't as much of a fan of Gerard Way's Doom Patrol. I'd read some issues. I went, before this episode, I read the story this was based on. So I tried to get a little bit up to speed. But, it's, essentially, with Doom Patrol, it's not so much Monster of the Week, it's more Weirdo of the Week, I think. And the Scants certainly fill that role nicely. I thought it was, it obviously were great characters to create a more comedic episode. A chance to get certain team members that normally wouldn't associate with one another, and get some reactions from new characters being brought in, like Roni and Miranda. So it made for some amusing events, and I think they served their purpose pretty well. And I don't know how much more you could do with them if you decided to bring them back. But for this one episode, I kind of see them as a one-off.
They kind of serve their purpose.
Yeah,
you can't do much more with them. I didn't want to cut you off there.
No, you're absolutely right. Go ahead.
But what I was just thinking was, because compared to, say, maybe a Dr. Time or even a Red Jack, you could possibly visit with them again.
Yes.
The Scants,
they don't seem like they have more potential.
They don't seem to, yeah, exactly. They don't really seem to have that much staying power that you want to, visit with them again, as it were. Because I think they filled their purpose also as far as the bigger narrative is concerned, because they do bring certain truths to the surface, i.e., Vic being as much in love as he is, because it actually is the truth that is how he feels. And he's like, oh, no, that was kind of just a Scants, but then he kind of has to. So I think, and also the fact of Larry's feeling of inadequacy, which is a real thing, and also the negative spirit wanting to leave and go to space, I think, just as we'd seen in Space Patrol, that he's kind of wanting something more, he's yearning for another place. And so I think in that sense, it is a Weirdo of the Week, but it's functional to the story as well.
I agree, totally. It seems like, as odd as a lot of these events are, and, it may be off-putting to some viewers, these events seem to be strong catalysts for change, I think. That, the events give these characters, at least when they're written well, right, they give them pause and give them an opportunity to kind of approach things from a different standpoint or a different perspective. And as a result, the characters go through developments a lot of times, especially on this show. And so, maybe it is a one-off. Maybe the villain isn't exactly one that will last and be overly memorable. But the events that take place, I think, are leading to repercussions that will be more important to character development than, say, a superhero team versus an enemy would.
Very well said. I mean, it's kind of like, a good comic book story, because you might get that one issue which, like, oh, come on, this is just a filler issue. They've given us nothing, but in the last 2 or 3 pages that something happens which is key to the main story arc. And I kind of saw that a little bit like that, because what you think is, yeah, we've come to the Doom Patrol filler episode, but not really, because there are ramifications, like you were pointing out, to what happens on screen in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, even as throwaway as it might seem, I don't think it's entirely meaningless here. I think they're, especially, with Vic and Roni, I think it kind of gets them to look at their relationship a little bit. Especially with Vic, he had expressed his love for Roni, or that Roni asked him whether he meant it when she said that he loved her, and he gets really uncomfortable about that. And then, she's like, tries to, blow it off and laugh about it and not say, oh, I was just messing with you. But I think, I think it affected her, and her just casual laughing about it, I think, is just a defense mechanism, because it kind of bothered her that he expressed that love for her, and she wasn't sure how to take it.
Well, sometimes they say that within a couple, when somebody makes light of a situation, there's actually more to it than them making light, because sometimes people might use sarcasm or almost facetious comments, as in really, it's almost a veiled way of saying, I actually mean this. I'm not just taking the mickey. Right. I actually mean what I'm saying.
So as I kind of look a little shifty-eyed and awkward, because I'm prone to doing that myself. So I kind of understand that a little bit. It's kind of my own defense mechanism, in case you hadn't noticed. So now, something I did want to ask you about. What did you make of Roni taking that bottle of Uma jelly without anyone knowing?
You know what? You flipped the question on me, because I was actually just thinking that. I'm like, I'm actually going to pose that question to Charles, but boom.
Checkmate. Checkmate. I got you first.
Yes, you did. Well, it kind of confirms what you had kind of revealed to myself and the listeners in our previous episodes of the fact that Roni is actually the male version of Roni in the comics is actually a villain, and
some things that she's up to no good. Yeah,
because you can kind of see that look in her eyes when she's looking at the vial, as it were, of this image, and kind of like, I wonder what I can get up to with this.
Right.
And we know that she kind of misses her abilities, and we kind of haven't get an idea of what this jelly can do if somebody ingests it. So you wonder what she's up to right now, and it's kind of like that dark moment, because you can almost see that even the light from the fireplace is the room is barely illuminated. It's almost that effect of something dark is happening. I think that's also a directorial choice of
to create that
darkness is coming.
Create that sense of foreboding. This is something that we should be paying attention to. It's a serious moment, and something that will be addressed more later on.
Yeah, I mean that's a typical scene that usually you get when you have a fireplace, and there's usually the kind of the dark shadow, as it were.
Yes.
It's either you're preparing for a major love scene, or it's going to be something bad's about to happen.
Or it's Palpatine working behind the scenes to get rid of the Jedi. I don't know. Oh wait, that's something else entirely. I don't know, but you kind of get my gist here, I think.
Yeah, we do.
All right. Now, something else I thought was interesting was at the end of the episode, Miranda goes back to the underground, and everybody's kind of like happy to talk to her. Jane's there. Kind of being compared to Miranda. Everybody's fawning over Miranda. And,
it's her hero's welcome.
Yeah, so Jane's just like, what the F, right? And Pretty Polly kind of pulls Jane aside and tells her that Scarlet Harlot didn't show up at book club, which I think is hilarious that the various personalities inside Jane's head have a book club.
And I can only imagine what book Scarlet Harlot would choose. Maybe 50 Shades of Grey? I don't know.
I would think Sybil. Just saying.
Oh, Sybil.
Right?
There you go. Well, I suppose the Scarlet Letter, being Scarlet Harlot, but maybe she probably knows that book by heart.
Yeah, it was probably something a little racier than that, I'm guessing. But
yeah.
But the thing is, though, Scarlet Harlot is missing. So Jane goes to Scarlet Harlot's station, but it's closed. And we know what that means. That means that, well, hey, the personality isn't there anymore. So the question is, why was the station closed? What happened to Scarlet Harlot? And, you and I know because we've watched ahead, but it's very important. So
yeah, for the sake of this episode, so many questions.
Exactly, so many questions. I know I'm kind of like destroying the mystery entirely here, but it's
you're fine. We kind of left there. Who knows what happened to her? It's a big mystery.
Exactly. So we'll just leave it there. Try to preserve as much of the mystery as we can, because we know all of you have watched ahead too. So
yeah.
Even Holly, remember, she said that she hadn't watched ahead.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Well,
you think you're fooling, Holly?
I've got emails right here that go all the way through to the season finale, so I know differently. So she changed her tune pretty quick. I'm just saying. So, but that's okay, because we're right there with you. We get it. All right. Anything else about these characters before we move on?
Well, no, I think we pretty much covered the large part of it, and also we get you get a premise of things to come, and so that's definitely it's definitely lining up the next episode very well, and I just feel really bad for Vic. I keep feeling worse and worse because especially when we see her walking away with the vial of jelly, I'm like, yeah. Dude, I really, really feel for you. I mean, it's
this is something we've been dreading because he was so eager to put his faith in her, and it's like sometimes you're going to get burned, and unfortunately that's what happened here.
I just hope that Silas won't give him the "I told you so" speech, because remember that famous phone call is like, it's great you're in love, but you better be careful knowing her past.
Well, knowing Silas as we do, I'm guessing my money is on, yes, he will do that. So
he'll give him the "I told you so."
Yes, he will. Yeah. So, all right. So let's move on. Let's talk.
Yeah.
We need to talk about poor Cliff Steele. So in topic number 2, let's talk about Cliff, but let's also talk about Clara, someone who surprises him at Dew Manor, making all the horrible things he goes through in this episode worth it, and in a very touching scene. So, what did you make of Cliff's saga as he plummets from orbit through a billboard, landing in the middle of nowhere, and has to make his way back on his own to Dew Manor?
Well, I can only imagine, because we only got certain shots of it,
Yeah.
but I can only imagine, this kind of cavalcade of cusses that followed him in his wake, as he kept walking down the street. And I feel so bad. Nobody picks the poor guy up. He actually gets crapped on by a bird. I'm like, come on, dude. Seriously. I just felt really bad for him. And I can't blame him that he's out for the Chief's blood. I really can't blame him, because he super helped him out with Dorothy. He actually was a better father than Niles was.
We talked about that, yeah.
Yeah.
And then what does he get for his trouble? He gets thrown out of a spaceship.
Exactly. And then crapped on by birds.
Right, exactly. And, with the robot hands, it's not like you wipe it off very well. You just got to clank. Yeah. He's kind of just smearing it around. So
it's terrible. Yeah. And then he has to stoop to as low as having to make these kind of video selfies, which were hysterical. Because I love the fact that they do throw in pop culture as well. I mean, granted, if we watch this episode maybe 20 years from now, it might seem dated. It might date the show, because now what people do is these kind of video shouts of like, one love, bro, and all this kind of thing.
Right.
But they were hysterical, because you're like, I know, I get that reference. So it was hysterical. But
yeah, I'm not sure. You're absolutely right. I'm not sure how that's going to age, but for right now, it's funny, right?
Yeah.
I have to wonder why didn't any cops happen to see Cliff walking, excuse me. You think the police would have gotten involved at some point during that journey, but somehow, maybe it's because he was walking through a lot of woods or whatnot, trying not to get noticed. You
do see a few cars passing by, so it's like,
right.
I don't see how a living, talking, walking robot doesn't stand out.
Yeah, you think somebody would at least drive by and go, kind of do a double take, and Cliff should be waving hi, can I get a lift or whatever, and then maybe they would drive off. But you think they would at least stop and take a good look first, right? Out of curiosity, if nothing else. Yeah. Cliff makes his way back. He runs into that guy, that complete douche that tries to get him, basically lets Vic use his lets Cliff use his cell phone, but only in exchange for doing shout outs over the, recorded through video. So he does that. He makes a call. And his first call, I forget who his first call was for.
I think it was, he actually called the diner, I think it was, to see if his daughter was there, but it went to voicemail or to the answering machine.
I think you're right. And so that doesn't work. And then he ends up calling Clara's house. He has to do, essentially the deal is now with the guy, well, one cell phone call per shout out.
Yeah, because I'm trying to actually remember, because at one point he calls Dew Manor, but I think it's the second time he calls Dew Manor.
Yeah.
And we see...
There's nobody there, but the
sex goes happily bumping around. Yes.
Yeah, so then the second call was to Salty's bar, and then he leaves the message. That's it. So he leaves this long message about how you had this chance to have me in your life, but you threw it away. And then he realizes, well, that's not the greatest message, but then it cuts off. He's not able to record another shout out, apparently, to do a message to correct the first message. But
and he gets the lamest bro talk from that other guy,
right.
Once that is over.
And then the guy drives away. He could have the guy could have given Cliff a lift, but he didn't. So the Cliff chases after him, and at that point he realizes his legs are working again. And he's like, well, I guess I got one more shot at this, and continues his walk. Like he's walking the earth like Kane in Kung Fu, to use a Pulp Fiction reference. And eventually makes his way back to Doom Manor, where he finds, you guessed it, Clara.
Yeah, surprise. I mean, you wonder how long it took him and where in the world he was. I mean, granted, as I said, we don't get to sort of understand the passage of time, but, you wonder whether a whole day went by or a couple of, it was just a matter of hours.
I like to think there's a lost episode of Cliff's adventures while he was walking back.
Well, I so want that now. That would be hysterical.
Wouldn't it? I mean, you could just do meanwhile, like back in season 2, Cliff was doing this, and you can almost tell an entire fill-in episode of Cliff's misadventures on the road trying to get back to Doom Manor.
See, I mean, not to open a long parenthesis, that would be a great Twin Peaks crossover. He meets the guy who's high in the woods. That would be perfect.
You mean by the name of Jerry Horn? This guy?
I think I'm high!
I mean, I don't know why, but it would just make me laugh like crazy. Seeing this guy walk around going, I think I'm high, and he sees, this robot walk by. It would be a great little mini crossover, I think.
That would be fun. Well, what would be even funnier is if Cliff lost direction and he took the wrong turn at Albuquerque or whatever and ended up in the Pacific Northwest where Twin Peaks, then you can have him come back.
What the F?
Yeah, exactly. That would be hilarious. But that's just, again, a little fan wishing, I guess, on our part. But
yeah, exactly.
It'd be fun, right? So if anybody's writing fan fiction, we've just given you a ton of story ideas. So have at it, people. And once you finish your fan fiction, send it in to us because we want to read it. All right. So what did you make of Cliff finding Clara back at Doom Manor?
It was beautiful because you think that finally his time has paid off, and he's gone through, father school, as it were, and gotten his diploma, I think, with Dorothy.
Right.
So I think he's ready to finally meet her, because when last time he met her was not under the best circumstances, and the approach was definitely not Father of the Year award winning at all. But I think now he's undergone this journey. I think now he's ready to do it. And I was just so happy because finally something good happens to a member of the Doom Patrol. And It's about bloody time.
Right, exactly. Now, to be fair, like you said, Cliff had made, we talked about when Cliff went down to Florida and tried to talk to her during her baby shower, and what a complete train wreck that was. And then leaving that message for him on the answering machine at the bar, you wouldn't think that she would be eager to visit him. So we find out, though, that apparently she got a videotape in the mail. Yeah. And it just so happens it was the tape that, if you remember, Cliff was looking for.
Exactly. I love how everything ties in so beautifully.
It was such a very subtle throwaway line where you had Cliff in a previous episode, I forget which one, he was trying to find this tape. So the question is, I
think it was Finger Patrol, because that's when he stumbles across the drawings that Niles had done.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
It could be. I might be wrong, but that's what I'm thinking.
So on this tape it's where Niles confesses what he did to Cliff. And presumably Clara watched it and now is reevaluating her thoughts about her father and realizing that it wasn't all his fault. And so maybe at long last, she's now in a position that, okay, let's see if we can at least open a dialogue here.
Yeah.
And so the question is, who do you think sent her the tape?
Ooh, that's a very good question.
I have a theory.
You do?
I do.
Because I'm trying to think, because the only person that might know where
Cliff couldn't find the tape, so he couldn't have been the one who sent it.
No, of course, because, to maybe do some rather shoddy detective work on my part.
Right.
The only person that might possibly know where she lives would be Jane, because she has been there, so she would know where it is.
And knows what that would mean to Cliff, perhaps?
That's my only sort of theory, because I can't see it being Niles and I can't see it being Rita. So my thought is, because the only person, logic demands that it could possibly only be Jane, because she knows where his daughter's at. But what's your theory?
Well,
Charles?
that is my theory, essentially, that I think Jane sent it. I think, I think Jane, without openly admitting it, cares about Cliff and knows how important it is for him to reach out to his daughter. And in an act of kindness, like I said, that she would never admit, she did what she could to try to repair that a little bit. And
plus, she'd been standing around long enough to memorize the address, you'd think. So,
well, not only that, but that she knew that all these tapes, she knew about the tapes, so she knew where to go to look for these. So I have to think it was Jane.
I think so too. She's the only possible candidate in this case.
And hopefully in season 3, maybe we'll find out about that. We'll get confirmation on this at some point. But that would be my theory. So if anybody else has a different theory, let us know.
Sure. Charles, what did you make of this, ostensibly robot man coming kind of full circle with his daughter and her finally showing up on the doorstep? What do you think of that?
Well, you brought up a great point where Cliff is now coming fresh from talking to Dorothy and even, kind of without even realizing it, getting an understanding of how he needs to talk to his own daughter. Mm-hmm. And so... and this is, again, a perfect example of these weird events. Cliff having a dialogue with Dorothy on the moon that have lasting repercussions and add to the character development in the show. And it's why this writing on the show is so good. Because, things that you wouldn't think matter really matter in important ways. And so I think Cliff, kind of went through a little education as a result. And now he's at a place where maybe he can open a dialogue with his daughter. His daughter is in a place where she can open a dialogue with her father. And maybe there's a chance for them to meet in the middle somewhere. And we'll see how it plays out.
We can only hope. Because he's finally gotten there. And it's like, will he be able to, kind of enjoy spending time with his daughter, or will it all go awry? So I guess, next episode will tell.
Yeah, and obviously his relationship with his daughter is now obviously a little more complicated than bringing her a stuffed animal.
There's so much more now.
Right.
It's a whole entire box of stuffed animals at this point that's been opened.
I don't care how fluffy it is. It's going to take a little bit more effort on his part. So we'll see.
Yeah. So
stay tuned, Cliff Watchers, and we'll see how it plays out. All right. Anything else about Cliff and Clara?
No, I think that's pretty much it. And I really was sort of, as I said, I was really looking forward to, the next episode to see what would happen next. This was once again a cliffhanger, as it were, in a small way. But it was fun. It was fun, yeah.
It's so easy to make that pun, isn't it?
Indeed, yes.
All right.
I have to milk it while I got it, Charles.
All right. Well, careful you don't walk yourself off a cliff doing it. All right. So topic number 3, let's move on. Let's talk about Rita and the Beekeeper. So Rita, who, as we catch up with her, is rehearsing for her role in the town's production of Our Town, which is a completely different Our Town And she has all of 2 lines of, my bees, and as the beekeeper in this production. So Mickey shows up, tells her that Isabel, the young woman that Rita got to meet in last week's episode, supposedly is run over by a tractor trailer and can't do the production. So Mickey's stuck with the rental cost of the theater, so they have to go forward with it. And she asked Rita to take over the role of Blob Lady, which Rita eagerly agrees. But unfortunately for Rita, her mother shows up, and she imagines her mother's there, asking Rita to thank her for saving her career, and points out that Rita wasn't Mickey's first choice, and it all turns out to be a nightmare that she wakes up from. So wah, wah. The slow trombone, I guess. So Rita from there goes off, and she's going to meet up with the town's beekeeper, the real beekeeper, to essentially learn from her about her character, and she's been allowed to shadow the beekeeper. So she makes a journey out there, and the woman that she meets sits her down and has a little discussion with her that proves pretty insightful, I think, for Rita. So what'd you make of that exchange, Nick?
Well, when it comes to the meeting between the beekeeper and Rita, you think it's just going to be, once again, hilarious because of the fact that she only has 1 line. And I appreciate Rita wanting to do a character study because it's kind of like, art imitating life and what have you. And, hey, she's a professional actor, so that's what a lot of professional actors do. But it's 1 line, and it's just like, my bees. And,
exactly.
And even
she's obviously a method actor, but.
Exactly. So I'll give her that. But even the beekeeper herself was like, you wanted to see me for 1 line, and
you're wearing a costume. You don't need the costume.
It's actually, yeah, and I thought once again you see kind of Rita's almost naivete in that sense, where she's like, will there be bees on the stage? And Rita's like, I don't think so. And it's like, you don't need the costume, because like a ballerina doesn't wear a tutu when she's when she's doing other things. So, but what is great is what might seem a very sort of just hilarious throwaway scene becomes so much more because Rita sees the mirroring of her relationship with her mom when the beekeeper's daughter shows up. And there's that whole thing of the honey pot, which of course, one can equate honey to sex and all this kind of thing. And
I'm sure that was a very intentional metaphor, by the way.
Of course, because I have a terribly dirty mind, and it's just me, because I was like, I thought to myself, man, either I have a filthy mind or they really meant this, and I'm sure they meant it. And my mind is probably not as filthy as I would give myself credit for. But
you're going to have to be a lot filthier, young man.
Yeah. And so I thought it was great that they actually got to have a mother-daughter talk, as it were, of like, this is how I treat my kid, and you shouldn't do that. And it becomes almost very philosophical over multiple beers by the time the chat is over.
Alcohol was definitely needed there in that moment, I think.
But I have to hand it to both of them. They still seem as sober as anything, and they've gone through I don't know how many beers. Granted, I think Rita can't actually get drunk, but the beekeeper you think would be a little bit buzzed by that point.
Maybe maybe she has a tolerance level.
Could very well be, but I love that they actually get to talk about it, and Rita finally gets to somewhat exercise, what's been holding her back and blocking even her powers, because we know she's been trying to do this for some time with Flex Mentalo, and then the beekeeper suggests talk to the bees. And I thought that was rather, it was...
Or yell at them.
Yell at them.
Yeah, to get it out, because essentially that's what the beekeeper does. It's like, I get so frustrated with my daughter. The bees are essentially a surrogate. So I just unload on the bees who can't unload back. So maybe you should try that.
and she just blows off steam, and lo and behold, she feels better about it. So who knew that, her unblocking of her problems would come from the most unlikely of places? And I think that was very clever on the writer's part to make it kind of the beekeeper to be the one to kind of unlock her problems.
Mm-hmm. And, that's something that they've been building toward. The idea that Rita hasn't really realized her potential because of this mental hang-up involving her mother having sex, that she, young Rita caught her mother having sex with a director just to get her apart on a movie. So, feeling, taking that responsibility and that guilt that comes along with that. So, as a result, it's affected her sense of self-esteem, her sense of self-worth, which has been one of Rita's main problems since the show began. And, it's, we get a little hint, a little bit that Rita's starting to realize this. Everything isn't entirely dealt with in a nice, clean way, but we do see her confronting a mugger in an alleyway who's like robbing a college kid, and she puts on that beekeeper's hood, like she's I am the beekeeper, and stretches an arm out, knocks out the mugger. So essentially, this is her kind of fulfilling that superhero fantasy that she's talked about wanting to achieve, and being able to, now that she's had these little personal insights, she's actually able to follow through on that.
It's just crazy that, as I said, that she's able to unblock herself like that. And I love the fact that, the beekeeper is kind of like, becoming, it's like, will that become her costume? I wonder, because she's kind of like doing the whole pose of the hands on the hips and everything else, which is a typical superhero pose. It's almost become stereotypical of the superhero, Charles did a perfect impression of that. It's just, ladies and gentlemen, because you guys can't see that, but that was a great impression of the superhero stance that Charles just did. Yeah, he knows how to do that one.
Yep.
And it makes you wonder, because I don't know if this is a major spoiler here or not, Charles, and you can feel free to delete it if needs be, but I believe there is a comic book character out there called the Beekeeper, or am I wrong?
I'm not familiar with them. To be honest with you, I'm not sure. Because in Doom Patrol comics, Rita becomes Elasti-Woman. So
no, because I believe there's a DC Comics character out there, very, very, like a C-list, D-list, etc., actually called the Beekeeper.
There is a Bumblebee, but I don't know about the Beekeeper. I'm kind of curious. I'm kind of looking this up really quickly. I know we're like on the recording this, but I'm kind of dying of curiosity, so apologies to everybody. So there was a villain by the name of the Beekeeper, apparently.
Unless it's a homage to that, because
I don't know.
Because I remember when I actually watched this episode.
There was the Queen Bee as well, who's also a villain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you're thinking of specifically.
I don't know, because it's odd. Because
if you find out, you're going to have to let me know, because I'm dying of curiosity.
Yeah, because I recall when I watched this episode, the next morning I usually check my phone for news and stuff that is related to, because I have, the various, these phones are as smart as anything these days. They just give you obviously suggestions on articles that you might be interested in reading. And among these was like, did Rita Farr just, homage a certain unknown DC character, the Beekeeper, ? It was like a photo of this chap wearing this almost like muscle suit, kind of typical 70s, figure-hugging suit.
Okay.
And apparently with like a bee or whatever, but I don't know. I don't know what was just somebody making light of it, or I don't know. But we'll definitely have that info for you guys next week for sure.
Well, if nothing else, if you come across that article, you could always post it on our Titan Talk page.
Have to share it on Titan Talk.
Yeah,
sure.
on our Titan Talk Facebook page. Yeah, I think that would be great if you could. All right. Anything else about Rita and the Beekeeper?
I was just so happy to see Rita kind of slowly but surely come into her own, because she's also having a major confidence boost here, and she needed it. So I'm glad that at least for Cliff and for Rita, it's hopefully the start of something good. We don't know obviously where it's going to go from here, but it's a nice beginning to hopefully something good happening in their lives.
Well, I think, with each Doom Patrol member, they're all essentially works in progress. They may have like one issue here, one issue there, but there's always something apparently for them to be working on. Nothing is entirely resolved, because real life isn't really like that. It doesn't get resolved neatly. So it's good to see them continuing to, and they're going to have, they'll have their ups, their downs, their relapses occasionally, and having to overcome those. But yeah, just, it's kind of great to see, that these characters, are just, they're constantly striving to be better than they were. And Rita's journey is certainly a perfect example of that, I think.
And like you said, it definitely reflects life, because life is made up of good days and bad days. And of course, our characters have had their fair share of bad days, and I'm glad that they got a little bit of sunshine, on an otherwise cloudy day, to use a tired phrase. But it is that's the way I feel, and I think it reflects. This is one of those shows that really reflects life even more so. Granted, some things that happen are way absurd, and obviously don't happen in real life, but it's much more relatable, I think, than, as much as I love, run-of-the-mill superhero shows, there's so much more relatability to real life here. As in, crap happens to people in life. It's part of it, and we don't have always, the son has got his hat on, ready to go, etc. So,
yeah.
It happens to the best of us. So I appreciate that on the writer's part, of giving them some happiness.
Well, and I think, I think it helps the viewer to see, like, okay, not everything about this character is a big downer. You want them to have the occasional happy moment, because otherwise, if they were constantly miserable, what's to prevent them from taking their own life and just ending it all? They would have to eventually have some glimmers of hope here and there to keep going, to get, just to want to continue to live. So it's great to see, Rita getting that moment here, I think.
We're looking at you, Arrow.
Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly.
Never a happy moment.
Never a happy moment on that show. No. Constantly a downer. All right. Rest in peace, Arrow, by the way. All right. So topic number 4. Let's move on. Let's talk about the Chief, the Candlemaker, and Willoughby Kipling. Now, Willoughby, is kind of mixed in a little bit with our first topic. Basically, all his purpose there is just essentially say, hey, you idiots got yourselves infected with the Scants. And then he ends up getting infected as well. But he doesn't really do that much with the members of the Doom Patrol. So I thought I'd save him for this topic, because he has a very important scene with the Chief at the end. And so any thoughts? I know you kind of hinted at that you had some thoughts about the big moments where things get turned up to 11 as the Candlemaker makes his return. So any thoughts you want to express in that regard?
Well, before we actually address, the giant candlemaker in the room, what I did think was I love Willoughby Kipling. The actor is just fantastic, and the characters,
Sheppard, yeah.
And, because from Doctor Who and Supernatural and that great stuff. Whenever he makes an entrance, the man makes an entrance. It might just be just a random, insult to somebody, but it's always like, yep. Kipling just entered the building, so I thought that was hilarious. And funny story, the mask, of course, was just hysterical. Of course, with the obviously shaped like a butt, of course, was funny.
Yes.
And speaking of which, the little movie that our characters watch, provided by the Knights Templar, made me think of DC's Order of Saint Dumas, which are, of course, part of the Knights Templar, where a certain Azrael comes from. And I wonder where they were kind of spoofing, the Order of Saint Dumas, and, of course, the Knights Templar, which plays a big part in the Batman universe, especially when it comes to Azrael. So I thought, as a Batman fan, I saw that as a fun kind of parody of the way the Knights Templar conceals these secrets. It's like, we here at the Knights Templar wish you a scant-free day. So I thought I like that, as I said, being a big fan of Azrael myself and that, so I thought it was great. But when it comes to our big moment, oh wow, Charles! I mean, I was actually watching it, having dinner. Finally, I was able to actually eat my dinner while watching it and not feeling sick, which was great because there was actually nothing to have to gag over.
Right.
And it was actually a particularly delicious pizza that night, so I'm glad I actually got to enjoy it. But yeah, as soon as I heard the candle maker, my eyes just rose and looked at the screen. I was like, it's happening! It's happening! Kind of putting down my knife and fork and looking at it. This is what it's kind of all built up to. This is kind of almost, I don't want to exaggerate here, but it's kind of like the end game of this season. And it's just so memorable, and the Candlemaker is so menacing, and it's like, now there'll be hell to pay, literally, because the guy's come out, he's made his mission, open to Niles, saying I'm here, and
and he's not hiding anything at this point. He's
exactly.
He's being like, he feels powerful enough that I don't have to, hide through Dorothy anymore. I can come out into the open and declare my true intentions.
Yeah, the time for concealment is over, and he can finally, sort of come out saying, here I am, and and you're. And you guys are not going to make it out alive, as it were. I was just blown away. And you can see how horrified Niles is, and the fact that he apparently has to make two decisions. It's kind of like, do I either try and drive the Candlemaker away, or I might actually have to contemplate killing my daughter. And I was like, whoa, seriously? I mean. The fact that, obviously, because as you said, he summons Willoughby Kipling because it's that time, and you're thinking to yourself, are they getting ready to go and kill Dorothy? And is that why Chief wanted Cliff out of the picture? Because, Cliff would you can't kill your daughter.
Right.
So maybe that's where it all comes from, is he kicked him out because it seemed like it was going to be more towards having to think about the ultimate sacrifice, i.e. murdering the person that he cherishes and loves more than anything else in the world.
Well, I think he kicked him out because he didn't want Cliff around while he and Dorothy went up north, and where Niles goes back to that spot. Where
the fire is,
where the fire is, where essentially Dorothy was the place where Dorothy was conceived with Slava, as we saw in season 1. Niles makes this call to her spirit apparently, but he gets no response, and he's talking about, hey, we need to speak about Dorothy, and I have to protect the world from her, and she's going to do something awful, or I have to do something awful to protect the world from her. So unless you've got a better idea, and she doesn't respond. The only person that responds is the Candlemaker, who shows up and essentially says, look, you're an idiot. Slava, and this is where we get a little backstory. Slava gave birth to both me and Dorothy. And her ancestors created me. So Niles, this is all taking place in a kind of a vision quest type dream, and so he wakes up from that, wondering what the Candlemaker met, and he talks about that he thinks that maybe Slava's people cursed Dorothy with the Candlemaker. And he yells yells to Slava, how could you do this to our daughter? And I thought that was intriguing. And
it was curious knowing also what you know about the candle maker,
yeah.
and when giving the fact that you also gave us the backstory about the candle maker, and ostensibly that he comes from another dimension, or he's trapped in another dimension, he's trying to come through this dimension. And here, like you said, we get him being a creation by Slava's people. It's either because
that's something completely different, by the way, from the comics.
Yeah, I mean,
but it works.
I wonder. It's almost like if you create angels, you have to create demons as well, almost, because you have these beatific, good personalities or imaginary friends looking after Dorothy, but it's almost like on the other side of the coin, you have to unfortunately create a dark side too.
Well, sometimes there's a price for these things, almost because the universe has to have a constant state of balance. Where
there's good and evil.
If something good is created, something evil has to be created to offset it, and vice versa.
Yeah, because there has to be that cosmic balance.
Right, exactly. So maybe that's what happened here in the process. We don't know. I mean, we get little hints here that something happened in Slava's people way back when, the Candlemaker was created. And, there's the implication that apparently, we don't know, maybe Slava wanted to rid herself of the curse of the Candlemaker. So she mated with Niles with the intention of passing it on to their daughter. We don't know.
Wow, it's like almost an exorcism of her own. Is it?
We don't know. I'm just speculating here, but it's some pretty heavy implications here, and we'll see how that plays out.
I mean, Charles, what were your thoughts on seeing the Candlemaker kind of rise from this funeral pyre almost? What did you make of that?
I mean, it's a very cool image, right? This being of flame and wax emerging from this pyre. It looks really cool, and you kind of wonder like how even better it would look if it was on like a big screen, like a movie theater screen. Hopefully, maybe at some point later in the 21st century, we'll get to experience something like that. But for right now, obviously, we're stuck with our TVs at home. It was visually, he's a very cool character to look at, and he's menacing. Lex Lang, who does the voice of the Candlemaker, he gives that right hint of menace. And now that the Candlemaker is able to be more eloquent in his dialogue, that he's more menacing, and he's just just really creepy, and I can't wait to see what happens next with him.
Oh, you and me both. I mean, when I actually watched this episode I'd seen the titles of the episodes, and when I saw that last episode was Wax Patrol, I was like, whoa, this is going to be good.
It's on. Yes.
Yeah.
It's about to go down. So, yeah.
Yep.
And obviously, we're going to talk about that more in a couple episodes from now. So, stay tuned, Titan Talkers. We'll get there. Don't worry. Some funny moments with Willoughby that we didn't really talk about, but there was. I wanted to address because we were talking about Willoughby and making that later he talks with Niles about helping him kill Dorothy, but there were some funny moments as well with Willoughby. There's that hint that apparently Willoughby has a thing for Baphomet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's got this.
If you remember
this fetish.
If you remember from season 1 when Willoughby Kipling first appeared, Baphomet was this horse head that kind of appeared as an oracle, and we find out more that apparently Willoughby apparently attracted to Baphomet. The Scant Queen kind of teases him about it, says like, that Baphomet will never love you, and I thought that was just hilarious. With all this craziness going on, and with all the craziness with the Candlemaker, Willoughby Kipling just has the hots for Baphomet. I thought it was hilarious.
Well, and he even writes her a poem like on the phone, in the phone booth. There's actually a very, very weird poem.
In blood, no less, right?
Yeah, I actually stopped and read that poem. I was like, come on. I mean, it gets kind of racy. It's kind of odd. And it's like, but at the end of the day, I guess if it's consensual, you're free to love who you choose, I guess.
One love. No, just kidding.
Yeah, one love. Exactly.
But, I'm not sure if that would be considered bestiality or necrophilia. I don't know.
It's all called necrobestiality.
Necrobestiality. There we go. I don't know if we just invented that word, but it's a cool word. I like it. Necrobestiality. Hashtag necrobestiality. All right. On that note, is there anything else about this episode that we missed?
No, I don't.
I know we covered a lot, so
I'm just kind of almost like flipping through my brain, thinking of what we got here. I think we pretty much touched all the highlights, and I think it definitely sets the stage for some big things in the next episode. Indeed, and I just really, really love this episode, Charles. It's such a strong season.
Yeah, I mean, it keeps escalating things, and obviously these next two episodes are very important, and we'll find out how next, very shortly. All right, let's talk about favorite quotes. Do you have any favorite lines of this episode?
Indeed, I do. So among these is the exchange when Roni first arrives at the Doom Manor, and they meet Miranda, and Miranda's like, "What's up?" And Roni's like, "Well," and Vic's just offered to perform surgery on me, and Miranda's like himself, and Larry's like, "Anything we can do to help?" And Vic's like, "Hell yeah, you're already dressed like doctors." That was fantastic.
That was good.
And also, the dude, as it were, because I think he's credited as the dude when he meets Cliff, and the dude is like, "No way, a talking statue," and Cliff's like, "I'm not an effing statue, I'm an effing robot," and dude's like, "Whoa, robot, can you move?" And Cliff's like, "Not at the moment," and dude's like, "I don't know, dog, sounds like something a statue might say." That was great.
There were a lot of great lines in this.
Yeah, and then the last one was the beard hunter to Miranda when they get trapped in the painting.
Yeah.
He's like, "Listen, little lady, I'm a self-trained shinobi warrior and a semi-professional Fortnite streamer." Another, reference to today, of course.
Yeah.
So if anyone knows how to stay hidden, that's the quote that I like. So yeah, I think 20 years from now, I wonder if people will still be playing Fortnite, but it works for this time period.
I kind of doubt it, but maybe in that nostalgia sense, because.
I remember Fortnite.
Yeah. Well, you always make the finish him reference from back in the day with Street Fighter or whatnot. So maybe at least they'll catch the reference. So many great lines in this one. Roni with Vic saying, "Look, when you said you lived with a mummy, I thought you were exaggerating," and Vic goes, "Oh hell no. If anything, I downplayed most of what I told you about this place." That was good.
I love it.
Willoughby Kipling saying, "You don't need a torso to have a heart."
Aww.
Obviously referring to Baphomet. The Templar narrator going, "Becoming infected by scants is extremely dangerous, as the bad ideas will compound and lead to death, dismemberment, and more death. Thank you for your kind attention."
Yes, we love the Knights Templar. I actually want more kind of educational films from the Knights Templar.
Those would be great, wouldn't they? Yeah. I want more of those, just like I want more Steel and Stone episodes.
Oh, yes.
Vic checking on Larry, saying, "Yo, Larry, you okay?" And Larry replies, "Not since the early 60s, no."
Yeah, that was great.
"Oh, negative man, will you ever cheer up?"
No.
Crazy Jane saying, "You were about to operate on Roni." Roni saying, "He had a lab coat on."
Of course. Why not?
And a very insightful comment from Miranda to Larry going, Miranda says, Hey, I know I'm new to the group, and I don't know how you handle things like this." And Larry replies, "Well, typically we just kind of wing it and everything works out."
Well, I guess kind of like real life sometimes. times.
Yeah, I thought that was good. So lots of great lines in this one.
Indeed.
All right, what's your rating?
I'm going to give this 9 vats of jelly, I reckon.
All right.
10 vats of umma jelly, yeah.
All right, the bottles of umma jelly, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, you really like this one then. Okay.
Indeed, I did. Yes, it was. I guess it got a lot of points for the moment where the candle maker emerges from the burning pyre.
You were just like going, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yes. That was me. Geek. Yeah. Those geek hormones were like off the charts,
That's
Charles,
awesome.
at that point.
And I wish I had a camera watching you as you watched that for the first.
I should have done.
You should have done a reaction video. Exactly. Yeah, that would have been fantastic. I like this one just slightly less than you. I give it 8.5 out of 10 crates marked "Do Not Open."
Nice.
So, and then they open it anyway, idiots.
What does this button do?
Yeah, exactly. Right? You knew they were going to open the box. Come on. What's in the box? What's in the box? Oh wait, that's 7. It's Gwyneth Paltrow's head. No.
Oh man, I love that. I know you often do go to that reference, and you do it so well.
Zan and I both love that one. All right. So we do have some Titan Talk feedback, from Holly Mack once again writing in. So it's always great to hear from Holly.
Hey, Holly.
So Holly says, "Hey, Charles and Nick." Hey, Holly. Isabel, and she writes in, of course, about Dumb Patrol. She says, Isabel meeting her demise by a tractor trailer. And then Rita's mom showing up, but at least it was a nightmare. Or was it?
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Looks like my theory was right that the Beard Hunter and Mr. Nobody escaped, and I'm a touch surprised that they aren't panicked. Well, it's Doom Patrol. They're always worrying about other things. The scene with Larry and Flit trying to disguise themselves as doctors and failing miserably had me chuckling. That was great. That was a great sequence.
Hysterical, yeah.
Nice to see Kipling return, and we now know the reason for the non-panic level, Scants. Why did it have to be Scants? You see what you did there?
Yeah.
Poor Cliff trying to get through to someone for help. Some interesting story for the candle maker. Miranda's plan for taking out the Scant Queen was a lot better than Kipling's, right?
Oh, yes.
Kipling was pretty useless.
He was, wasn't he?
He was rubbish. Total rubbish.
He was rubbish, and it also makes you show you the power of words. Who said words can't hurt you? Ask Crazy Jane. Words can hurt.
Yeah, apparently this is what happens when you get the Doom Patrol version of John Constantine. And not quite as effective, apparently. Was surprised to see Clara show up at the manor and make peace with her dad. We now know why Scarlet Harlot wasn't around during the Sex Patrol episode. Wonder where she went or who took off with her. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin.
Always great hearing from you, Holly.
It is. And as always, check Holly out on the Five-ish Fangirls podcast with Rachel Friend and her other 3 wonderful co-hosts because...
Chrissy and Brittany. Yeah, there we go.
Yes.
So at least you can give them all a shout-out.
Give them all a shout-out, exactly. So they're wonderful people, and obviously, we love hearing from Holly and Rachel. So here and then on Next Stop Everywhere. So please give them some love.
Definitely. Right. Great girls.
All right. So while we're on the subject of shameless plugs, Nick, where can they find you?
Charles, before we actually get to do that, do you want to let folks know where they can reach us with their comments?
Well, that's probably a better idea than what I did because I completely forgot again. So this is why you're the professional and I'm the mere amateur. So, of course, if you want to be like Holly, reach out to us. Please reach out to us at TitanTalkCast@gmail.com. It's TitanTalkCast@gmail.com. Or on Twitter, you can reach us at TitanTalkCast or Titan Talk the Titans podcast on Facebook, where hopefully Nick will share his Beekeeper article. So
I will look for it, I promise.
All right. I'm sure you will. So hopefully you find it and you let us know because, like I said, I'm dying to know what you're talking about. So, all right. And Nick, where can they find you?
Well, when it comes to me, for you country music lovers, I host a Whiskey and Cigarettes show where we play traditional country, today's country, and everything else in between. For more about that and how and where to tune in, you can visit our website. That's whiskeyandcigarettesshow.com. When it comes to podcast land, when I'm not around hanging out with my good friend Charles talking about Doom Patrol, if superhero movies are your speed, you can find me hosting the Happiness and Darkness podcast, where we discuss superhero movies from Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, Image, and more. If you'd like to join me on there and discuss a superhero movie of your choice, feel free to send me an email at happinessanddarknesshow@gmail.com. We're also on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And my latest project, of course, Gold Standard, the Oscars Movie Podcast, where with mutual friends Zan Sprouse and Rachel Friend, we are reviewing all the movies that won the Oscar for Best Picture in chronological order from 1927's Wings to the present day. Thursday, August the 20th, we'll be discussing the sixth film to win Best Picture, which will be Cavalcade. And should any of you listeners wish to join us for that discussion, or if you simply want to share your thoughts on that movie, you can shoot us an email. That's goldstandardoscars@gmail.com. We love hearing from you guys, and we also appreciate the follow and support on Twitter and Facebook. That's Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast, available like Happiness and Darkness and this show where you get your podcasts. And what about you, Charles?
You are so good at that. I'm in awe of you. All right. Of course, me, at Charles.
I learned from the master.
Oh, well, it wasn't me then. You learned from, I don't know who the master was, but he wasn't me. Of course, me, at Charles Skaggs on Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on Instagram. Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio. And my blog, Geeky Things, wait for it.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot. We're talking about all the stuff we talk about here on Titan Talk, including Titans news, Doom Patrol news, whenever it comes out, all kinds of comic book sci-fi news of my other podcasts for the Southgate Media Group, including, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast that I do with Jesse Jackson and assorted special guest companions like a certain DJ Nick, where we talk all things Doctor Who, Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures, Big Finish Audios, have a lot of fun, and getting ever so closer to our 200th episode. So that'll be coming up in a big, big celebration, but I'm not going to tease what that is just yet. Got to wait for it. And then the Phantom Zone podcast that I also do with Jesse, where we are only one episode left to record for Stargirl Season 1. It's been a lot of fun. We've been just... we're going to be obviously watching the Stargirl Season 1 finale tonight. We'll talk about it later this weekend. And so that'll be coming out very soon in episode 189. So I hope everybody checks that out. And then lastly, of course, Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast that do with Zan Sprouse, Nick's co-host on the Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast, with it where she and I talk all things Twin Peaks, David Lynch. And starting this week, we are going to be kind of doing a little side trip in the Pacific Northwest as a certain David Duchovny appeared on Twin Peaks as Special Agent Denise Bryson. And then after the Twin Peaks ended, he got the gig of a certain Fox Mulder on Fox's The X-Files that you may have heard of.
Didn't go anywhere.
No, not at all. Just a complete one and done, right? No, that obviously took off huge for Duchovny. And so in that regard, we're going to be talking the X-Files pilot this week. And then the 5 episodes after that, we're going to be talking about other Twin Peaks actors that appeared on the X-Files, including like Don S. Davis, Michael Horse, Kenneth Welsh, Michael J. Anderson, and Richard Bamer. So stay tuned for those. And there's going to be a lot of great episodes. We're going to talk about Beyond the Sea, Shapes, Humbug. So a lot of great episodes. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And we're already getting some great positive feedback on what we're doing, what we're planning. So if you're an X-Files fan or a Twin Peaks fan, or just a fan of these actors, check us out on Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast.
Fantastic stuff. I would definitely be tuning in for sure, Charles, and you might actually expect possibly some electronic mail coming your way for this pilot.
Now, should I read it in your voice or should I do my own voice?
Dealer's choice, as they say.
Dear Charles and Zan. No.
I love it.
No, I won't subject you to that. So everybody, thank you so much for listening. I know we ran long, but I was just having so much fun talking to Nick.
We just enjoy ourselves way too much, don't we, Charles?
Exactly. Yeah, God forbid people on a podcast enjoy themselves. Go figure, right?
Oh, yes, exactly. We actually hate each other in real life, folks.
Yeah, exactly. So everybody, thanks for putting up with our nonsense. And then come on back next time on Titan Talk for episode 58. We're going to talk Dad Patrol, the penultimate episode of Doom Patrol Season 2, a.k.a. Episode 8. And it's going to be very interesting as we build ever closer to the Season 2 finale. Looking forward to talking this one with you. This is obviously a big Chief and Dorothy episode.
Oh, yes.
And we should have lots and lots to talk about next week. So
there will be a lot to unpack as usual, Charles, for sure.
Yep. So, Nick, thank you very much for joining me here. I had a lot of fun, as always. And any final thoughts before we sign off?
Well, no, as always, Charles, I want to thank you so much. It's been such a fantastic journey. I've been enjoying myself immensely. And as always, I want to thank our listeners for supporting us and listening to the show, of course, and, following us on social media. We really appreciate it.
Yep. So if you enjoy what we do, please like and share our posts and links and follow us and all that jazz. Review our shows because, hey, that gets people to notice us more in our various endeavors. And, with Nick, I'm sure he'd appreciate that. I know I would.
Sure.
So, and obviously we'd appreciate it here on Titan Talk. So, everybody, again, thank you for listening. Come on back, episode 58, Dad Patrol, next week. It's going to be big. And we're going to have a lot of fun, and we'll see you next time right here on Titan Talk, the Titans podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
One love.